You have not failed. You have simply been underestimated for too long, your true capacity unseen, your quiet strength mistaken for weakness. The world isn't deceiving you, it's testing you. And here's why you felt that quiet burn, that gnawing sense that there's a deeper game being played, a game you're ready to master. Observe those who move through life as if the world was built for them. They do not chase. They do not hurry. Yet, people, opportunities, and perfect timing seem to align with their mere presence. They are not loud, nor are they merely lucky. They are defined by an unshakable certainty, certain of what they want, and even more certain that it will be theirs, while others expend precious energy explaining, apologizing, or hesitating. These few simply act. That is why the world yields to them, because power, true power, does not belong to the strongest or the loudest. It belongs to the one who remains unmoved, the one who can stand absolutely still, a rock in the torrent, while everyone else scrambles, begs, or clamors for approval. To become truly unstoppable, you must first engrave this truth into your core. The universe does not reward conventional goodness. It rewards decisive action. It bends its knee for the one who harbors no doubt. It obeys the one who does not flinch, who does not even contemplate retreat. Most people will spend their entire lives trapped in the cage of asking, "Is it possible?" The unstoppable, the few who truly command, simply ask, "How do I seize it?" This is not a lesson in feel-good motivation. This is a manual for absolute domination. These are the ruthless laws, carved from the cold, brilliant mind of Machiavelli himself, for those who refuse to live as mere spectators in their own lives. Because in this world, there is only one undeniable truth. You either command, or you are commanded. Once that truth settles into your bones, you will stop waiting for permission to win. You will understand that clarity is not a virtue to be admired. It is a weapon, the sharpest blade you will ever hold. And the first thing it cuts, relentlessly, is illusion. Most people claim to seek clarity, but what they truly crave is comfort dressed up as truth. They want to understand, but only if that understanding doesn't force them to change their comfortable narratives. They demand honesty until that honesty dismantles the fragile stories they've built to shield their weaknesses. But Machiavelli, with surgical precision, understood the hidden violence inherent in seeing things exactly as they are. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that anyone who deceives will always find someone willing to be deceived. That is not cynicism. That is anatomy. It describes the fundamental human condition. People, en masse, will always prefer a sweet lie over a bitter fact. The rare few who reject that comfort, the ones who choose to see without flinching, they become something else entirely. They become dangerous. Because once you begin to see clearly, truly see, you can no longer be controlled. When you recognize the repetitive patterns in people's motives, you stop reacting to their carefully staged performances. You stop feeding the emotional parasites who thrive on your guilt and empathy. You stop chasing the phantom approval of those who were never going to give it in the first place. Clarity shatters the trance that keeps ordinary people obedient, pliable. It feels cruel because it demands a death, the death of delusion. You begin to realize that half the promises you once believed were merely negotiations in disguise. That loyalty often lasts only as long as usefulness does. That morality, in the wrong hands, becomes a leash, binding you while they run free. Most people cannot face this brutal truth. They prefer the fog because it is warm, it is safe. But power, absolute power, lives in the cold, stark light, where every decision is made without distortion, without sentiment. The unstoppable know this. Clarity is the birthplace of control. When your perception is clean, you can cut through manipulation before it even begins. You stop answering questions designed to trap you. You start dictating the terms of every conversation. You move from defending to directing, from reacting to ruling. Notice the people who wield real influence in any arena, from boardrooms to battlefields. They don't speak much, and when they do, every word lands like an undeniable command, a pronouncement. That isn't just charisma, it is clarity. They know precisely what they want, and exactly what they will never, under any circumstance, tolerate. They waste no energy explaining, no breath apologizing, no moment proving their worth. To reach that level of surgical precision, you must perform a kind of emotional surgery on yourself. Cut the noise. Sever the opinions of those who have built nothing of substance. Excise the endless analysis that disguises fear as deep reflection. Clarity is not about seeing everything. It is about focusing, with brutal intensity, on what truly matters. A blade does not need to touch the entire body. It needs to strike the artery. The same is true with your attention. Direct it with unwavering precision, and the world will bleed for you. And yes, people will call you cold. They will say you've changed, that you've become distant, calculating. What they truly mean is that you've stopped letting them feed off your uncertainty, your indecision. You have stopped being predictable, and the predictable, in this world, are always prey. Do not apologize for your clarity. You are not cruel. You are awake. Let others drown in their endless empathy and confusion. You, on the other hand, will walk through chaos as if it were a map only you can read, a blueprint for your ascent. Because once you see the truth, truly see it, there is no going back. There is only forward, colder, sharper, freer. That is the first law of becoming unstoppable. Clarity is cruelty, and cruelty in the hands of the wise is nothing more than precision. Power that depends on permission can be revoked. Power that depends on position can be replaced. But power that is personal, power that emanates from who you have fundamentally become, that kind of power cannot be destroyed. This is the kind of power Machiavelli respected most. Not crowns, not titles inherited, not even vast armies, but presence. The undeniable aura of someone who needs nothing, yet commands everything. You have encountered people like that. They walk into a room, and the very atmosphere shifts, not because they demand attention, but because they radiate an undeniable ownership of themselves, of the moment, of reality itself. That is personal power, the kind that cannot be borrowed, copied, or faked. To build it, you must begin with one brutal act, the act of self-definition. Most people are mere mirrors. They reflect prevailing opinions, fleeting trends, and ambient moods. They shift to fit their environment, hoping desperately to be accepted by it. But in doing so, they lose themselves, and the world treats them accordingly, because the world holds no respect for those who do not know, absolutely, who they are. The powerful, by stark contrast, define their identity like an impregnable fortress. They decide precisely who they are, and then they become it completely, embodying every facet. Their values, their tone, their every decision, all align like weapons forged for one singular purpose. There is no confusion, no internal contradiction, no performance for external validation, only a profound clarity of being. And clarity, when fully embodied, becomes command. This is why you must stop trying to convince people of your worth. Stop arguing for your value. Stop seeking validation from those who operate beneath your purpose, whose opinions are irrelevant to your trajectory. Make your very existence a statement that requires no explanation. When your sense of self is absolute, every insult becomes irrelevant noise. Every rejection becomes a strategic redirection, a course correction. Every failure becomes valuable information, not a defining identity. That is how you make power personal. You remove the middlemen between you and your confidence. You stop needing reputation to feel strong. You stop needing attention to feel real. You stop needing company to feel complete. Once you reach that point of unshakable self-sufficiency, you become truly unpredictable. Because no one can truly threaten you. They cannot take what you do not depend on. They cannot shame you for choices you have already accepted as your own. They cannot lure you with approval you no longer crave. That is why Machiavelli admired rulers who built power from the forge of their own mind, not from the accident of their bloodline. He called it virtù, the individual's profound capacity to shape destiny through sheer will and penetrating intelligence. It is the fundamental difference between an emperor born into gold and one who forged his crown from nothing by sheer force of will. The first has power on loan, a temporary concession. The second is power. Making power personal means every victory and every wound, every triumph and every scar belongs exclusively to you. You stop outsourcing responsibility. You stop blaming, justifying, or complaining. You take control, not because it is easy, but because it is the only way to truly own your life, fully and without reservation. And yes, it will isolate you. True individuality always does. Because when you stop depending on fickle systems, transient approval, or shaky institutions to validate you, you step into a kind of profound freedom that terrifies others. They will label you selfish, arrogant, cold, but what they are truly feeling is fear, because your fierce independence exposes their own crippling dependence. Making power personal is not about crude dominance. It is about absolute sovereignty. It is about becoming the kind of person who does not need a throne, because the throne exists wherever they stand. That is the level beyond mere ambition, where you no longer chase power because you embody it. Machiavelli would assert that the one who masters himself masters all others by default. So stop trying to control the world. Control yourself completely, with surgical precision, and you will find that the world bends naturally around that sheer gravity. That is how the unstoppable are forged. Power is no longer something they reach for, it is something they are. There is a precise point in the rise of every truly powerful person when the world stops asking if they will succeed and begins asking when. That is the moment when victory ceases to be merely possible and becomes absolutely inevitable. And inevitability, for the masses, is the final, most potent illusion of total control. Machiavelli, with his characteristic piercing insight, wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, meaning people do not follow what is objectively true. They follow what appears unstoppable. If you can make your ascent look certain, predetermined, the world will begin helping you climb, out of fear, out of admiration, or out of sheer surrender. The aura of inevitability is not built by random luck or cosmic alignment. It is meticulously constructed through relentless consistency, strategic restraint, and psychological warfare. You make profound progress in silence, but you reveal it strategically, with controlled bursts. You reveal just enough movement to suggest unstoppable momentum, just enough quiet confidence to make doubt look foolish, even blasphemous. Once people believe in your inevitability, they begin aligning themselves with your direction, your orbit, not because they fully understand your intricate plan, but because they fear being left behind, utterly irrelevant, by its relentless march. That is the silent secret of profound influence. People don't truly follow leaders. They follow certainty. They attach themselves to those who appear chosen by destiny, those who seem guided by something larger, more powerful than mere chance. To cultivate this unshakable aura, you must master the illusion of smooth, effortless inevitability. Even when you are struggling internally, you move as if your outcome is guaranteed, a foregone conclusion. Even when you are deeply uncertain, you project a quiet, unyielding assurance. You never, ever appear desperate, defensive, or disoriented, because once others sense panic, the spell breaks and the fragile edifice of inevitability collapses. Perception drives momentum, and momentum, once others begin believing in it, becomes self-fulfilling. Your confidence infects them, your calm convinces them, Your absolute composure under immense pressure becomes evidence of something divine, something far greater than mere effort. Machiavelli would call this the theater of power. It is not deceit in the common sense, it is strategy. You meticulously shape the narrative before others can write it for you, because in the unforgiving court of public opinion, the appearance of strength is strength. Never reveal uncertainty publicly. Doubt is a luxury reserved for private reflection, not for public display. Let the world see you only in absolute control, even when control feels like a whisper, a fragile thread within utter chaos. And never argue for your inevitability. Let your presence, your deliberate pace, and your surgical precision speak it silently, forcefully. The more you insist, the less they believe. The more you act like destiny personified, the more they accept it as truth. This is how kings, conquerors, and transcendent leaders create the illusion of divine right. They act as if their rise was written before their birth, and once people believe that, resistance feels like rebellion against fate itself. When you cultivate inevitability, you stop fighting for belief. The world begins to rationalize your victories for you. Every success becomes obvious, every move genius, every risk perfectly calculated, and soon even your most hardened enemies begin to hesitate. Because who, truly, wants to stand in the way of what cannot be stopped? But understand this: inevitability is not arrogance, it is composure under uncertainty. It is persistence disguised as destiny. You earn it through relentless focus, through showing up with unwavering resolve when others quit, through unshakable patience when others panic. You don't need to convince the world that you will win. You just need to make it impossible to imagine you won't. That's when reality itself starts to bend toward you. When doors open before you knock. When people begin rearranging their own lives, their own positions, to accommodate your inevitable rise. At that point, power stops being a chase. It becomes gravity, because when you move with the undeniable energy of inevitability, the world no longer resists you. It yields. Power is not always found in rigid order. Sometimes its true domain is controlled disorder, in chaos that obeys only you. The weak crave stability. They demand predictability, comfort, and clear, traceable patterns. That is precisely why they are so easy to control. Once you know what calms them, what provokes them, what pleases them, you, in essence, own them. But the powerful understand something far deeper, far more insidious. Predictability is a prison. If people can reliably read your next move, they can plan, strategize, and execute against you. If they always know exactly how you will react, they can manipulate you with surgical precision. Control, then, is not about being rigid. It is about being unreadable. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn to be both fox and lion, cunning and forceful, shifting between these archetypes at will, with absolute mastery. That is the very essence of calculated chaos. To appear inconsistent, not because you are lost or indecisive, but because you choose to be strategically unpredictable on purpose. The greatest leaders, the most brilliant strategists, the most cunning manipulators, all share this common trait. They move like storms. You never truly know when they will strike, where they will turn, or how long their influence will last. But when they move, they reshape everything in their path. Unpredictability is raw power. It keeps enemies anxious, always on edge, and allies alert, always questioning. It makes people hesitate deeply before crossing you, because they cannot calculate what you will do if they do. That profound uncertainty is your most potent shield. Fear does not come from what people know you will do. It comes from what they cannot predict. To master calculated chaos, you must first abandon your crippling obsession with always being understood, always being transparent. Let people misread you, Let them believe they have figured you out, then prove them spectacularly wrong again and again until they simply stop trying. Once they stop attempting to predict you, you have won a profound psychological victory. But chaos must always be controlled, orchestrated. This is where fools inevitably fail. They mistake raw impulsiveness for true power. They confuse reckless abandon with dominance. True chaos is never emotional. It is engineered, designed. Every move that looks spontaneous is secretly deliberate, meticulously planned. Every surprise is the direct result of intense preparation hidden in impenetrable silence. Think of it like a storm guided by a powerful, calculating mind. It appears wild, untamed, but every strike, every lightning flash is precise, purposeful. You create confusion not because you have lost control, but because you want others to lose theirs. This is psychological warfare at its peak. You make people dance to a rhythm they cannot follow, cannot anticipate. You train them, subtly, to expect nothing, and in that uncertainty, they become reactive, emotional, profoundly sloppy. While they unravel, you remain utterly still, the calm, unshakable center within the storm of your own making. Even in negotiation, unpredictability grants you immense leverage. If they know you are desperate, they will exploit you without mercy. If they believe you might simply walk away, they will chase you. If they cannot read your true intentions, they will offer more than they ever planned, simply to alleviate their own anxiety. Power always belongs to the one who cannot be read, Machiavelli warned. It is better to be impetuous than cautious. But what he truly meant was not recklessness. It was rhythm, to strike with lightning speed when others hesitate, to disrupt the timing of your opponents until every move they make, consciously or unconsciously, serves you. The key is delicate balance. Too much chaos, and you destroy your own structure, your own foundation. Too much order, and you become predictable prey. The art lies in dancing gracefully, lethally, between the two, in being chaos with a plan, unpredictability with an unwavering direction. When they think you're weak, strike. When they think you're strong, wait. When they think they know you, change. Because power is not about being stable. It's about being inevitable. Let them see your chaos, but make absolutely sure it is always your design. The storm that obeys no one except its creator. The fundamental difference between the powerful and the powerless is not that one avoids loss. It is that one uses it. Everyone bleeds. Everyone fails. Everyone falls. But only a rare few understand the hidden architecture of defeat, that every setback carries within it the precise blueprint for dominance. Machiavelli warned that fortune is fickle, a capricious goddess. She strikes when least expected. But he also asserted that the wise man learns to beat her into submission, to bend her to his will, meaning you cannot stop misfortune, but you can, with brutal efficiency, make it serve you. That's the profound secret of those who rise after ruin, who rebuild empires from ashes. They do not waste precious time grieving over what happened. They dissect it. They analyze the failure like an assassin studying a target, calmly, without emotion, with surgical precision. Loss reveals your vulnerabilities faster than success ever could. It shows you precisely where you were naive, where you were distracted, where you were utterly unprepared. It is brutal feedback, written in pain, and those who can face it without pride or panic turn it into intelligence, into unassailable leverage. Because power, true, enduring power, is not built in moments of comfortable victory. It is built in moments of absolute collapse, when you realize, with cold clarity, that the world doesn't owe you safety, and you decide, then and there, to build it yourself, brick by painful brick. When you lose, you have two stark choices. You can identify as the victim, forever bound by what was taken, or you can become the architect who studies meticulously how it was taken and designs a system so it never, ever happens again. That is how empires are born from ashes, not by chance, but by deliberate, intelligent reconstruction. The unstoppable know this truth deeply. They never truly lose, because every failure, every setback, feeds their relentless evolution. They turn betrayal into invaluable information, rejection into profound refinement, pain into surgical precision. Every insult becomes data, every wound becomes armor, every ending becomes a powerful redirection towards something stronger, more resilient. This is what it means to weaponize suffering. But to do this, you must first kill one crippling illusion, the illusion of fairness. You must stop expecting life to reward your effort proportionally. You must stop equating goodness with protection. You must stop waiting for the world to apologize for its inherent cruelty. Power begins when you accept, with cold finality, that there will be no universal justice, only the advantage you, and you alone, can extract from what happens. That's why Machiavelli admired those who thrived under immense pressure. He called it virtù, not virtue in the moral sense, but excellence under chaos. The rare ability to bend circumstance, even disaster, through sheer intelligence and unyielding will, to look at utter devastation and say, "Good, now I see what's real." Because when you lose everything unnecessary, you see everything essential. You see who stays, who betrays, who matters, and who utterly doesn't. You see what skills you brutally lack, and what comforting illusions you desperately clung to. You see yourself unfiltered, unprotected, pure. And from that raw, unvarnished truth, you can rebuild something truly indestructible. When pain becomes purpose, loss transforms into unassailable leverage. Because every scar then carries information no victory could ever teach you. You start anticipating betrayal instead of being wounded by it. You start building strategies that can not only survive chaos, but thrive within it. You start thinking like Machiavelli, coldly, clearly, without a shred of sentimentality. And soon, the world begins to notice the profound shift. You no longer react, you calculate. You no longer fear loss, you use it. You no longer break under pressure, you sharpen. Because in the end, the unstoppable are not those who never fall. They are those who fall strategically. Every downfall becomes a map, guiding future maneuvers. Every failure becomes a foundation, strengthening the next ascent. Every humiliation becomes a seed of power, planted in silence, germinating in the dark. That is how the wise conquer the inevitable. They turn tragedy into training. They make loss work for them. Machiavelli would call that true mastery, the ability to turn defeat into design and pain into power. The most dangerous kind of power is not physical, it is psychological. It is not about brute force. It is about control, wielded subtly through necessity. Machiavelli understood this with chilling clarity, better than anyone. He wrote that a wise ruler should always conduct himself so that his people cannot do without him. Dependency is the invisible, unbreakable chain of power. Once someone depends on you, for validation, for access, for stability, for crucial insight, you own the very rhythm of their mind. Dependency creates leverage, and leverage is the absolute currency of control. Most people, tragically, want to be liked. The powerful want to be needed, because being liked is fragile. It can change overnight, with the slightest shift in mood or circumstance. But being needed grants you permanence. It forces others to protect your position, your very presence, even when they deeply resent you. So, how do you create dependency? First, you make yourself undeniably useful, not through obsequious flattery or compliant subservience, but through delivering profound value. You become the one who consistently delivers results, solves intractable problems, or brings a profound calm to chaos. When chaos reigns, you make yourself indispensable, the quiet, unshakable pillar in every system you touch. Once they rely on your strength, your stability, You withdraw slightly, not completely, just enough to let them feel the acute vacuum, the unsettling absence. This is the subtle art, to give so effectively that your absence feels like a tangible pain, a critical loss. Withdrawal transforms usefulness into addiction. It reminds people, with a sharp jolt, that you are the essential source of stability, approval, access, or peace. And once they deeply associate you with their comfort, their survival, they begin to protect your presence like a primal instinct. Machiavelli would call this possession through influence. It's not ownership in name, it's ownership in effect. You don't need to control people directly when they begin controlling themselves meticulously to keep your favor. That is true power, the kind that requires no overt demand, no noise, no force. A single well-timed withdrawal achieves more than 1,000 commands. But here lies the profound art. You must balance, with surgical precision, between giving and vanishing. If you withdraw too soon, they will simply detach, find another source. If you give too long, they will take you for granted, your value eroding into expectation. The mastery lies in impeccable timing, knowing exactly when to disappear so that your absence exponentially grows your importance. Think of influence like oxygen. You let them breathe freely, abundantly, then you take a little away, not to suffocate them, but to remind them, viscerally, who provides the very air they breathe. This is not cruelty. It is architecture. Every empire, every movement, every dominant company is built on dependency. Power is not held by the numerical majority. It is held by those the majority simply cannot function without. Even in personal relationships, this law reigns supreme. People chase those who make them feel something they cannot create alone. They admire those who bring order to their internal chaos. They become addicted to those who understand their minds better than they understand themselves. Once you identify what others crave, security, admiration, direction, mystery, and you, with deliberate intent, become its indispensable source, you hold silent, profound authority over them. But never, ever forget the second, crucial half of the law: withdrawal. Power decays when overexposed. If you are always available, always present, you become expected, ordinary. Familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort, in the game of power, inevitably kills respect. The powerful understand this instinctively. They appear when it profoundly matters and vanish when it doesn't. They move like ghosts, present just enough to be remembered, absent enough to be mythologized. Machiavelli warned rulers to never let their subjects grow too accustomed to them, because when people think they can reach you whenever they please, they stop valuing what it truly costs to have you. They start treating your time, your energy, and your presence as mere resources, not as invaluable gifts. Distance is not detachment in the emotional sense. It is design. It is the exquisite art of making people earn proximity to you. When you master distance, something subtle, yet profound, happens. Your silence becomes louder than any words. Your absence begins to speak volumes for you. People start to imagine you, to fill in your mystery with their own fascination and their own fears. And imagination, understand this, is far more powerful than mundane reality. Because here's the paradox. The less you explain yourself, the more people obsess over understanding you. The less you appear, the more they intensely wonder where you have gone. And in that wondering, that relentless speculation, you dominate their thoughts. This is psychological gravity, the potent force of scarcity. What is rare becomes inherently valuable. What is always available becomes invisible. That's why you must stop trying to be everywhere. Stop being constantly reachable, constantly seen, constantly reacting to every trivial stimulus. Withdraw strategically. Let your energy create anticipation, a palpable hunger. Let your presence feel like a profound event, not a dull routine. When you disappear for a while, the world, in subtle ways, resets around your absence. The noise quiets, your name becomes heavier, imbued with greater significance. Your return becomes unpredictable, a force to be reckoned with. And when you reappear, stronger, sharper, quieter, it feels like a storm, a monumental force, has entered the room. Distance also fiercely protects your clarity. When you step away, you see the intricate game from above, from a strategic vantage point. You recognize who is truly genuine and who only thrives when you're conveniently available to be used. You discover which relationships are rooted in genuine respect and which depend solely on your convenience, your utility. Withdrawal reveals truth. The ones who panic, who lash out when you disappear, were never truly connected to you. They were connected to their control over you. The ones who remain patient, who still respect you in silence, who understand your strategic moves, those are your true allies. Everyone else was a leash. Machiavelli would call this the politics of presence, knowing precisely when to show your face and when to make absence your most potent authority. Because when people can't access you easily, they start to idealize you, to imbue you with mythical qualities, and idealization always precedes obedience. Even in warfare, the greatest generals understand the profound power of strategic retreat. Stepping back is not surrender, it is the gathering of force, the sharpening of the blade. Every conqueror knows you cannot strike effectively if you are surrounded by noise, by constant demands. Distance is where you sharpen the blade. So, become less available. Let people wait for your attention. Let them earn your response. And when they finally get it, make it precise, calculated, absolutely unforgettable. Because distance doesn't make you cold. It makes you commanding. The ones who need constant attention fade into background noise. The ones who master distance become legends. Remember, scarcity builds reverence. The sun disappears each night, and that's exactly why the world worships its return. So withdraw, observe, let them wonder, and when you choose to reappear, make it impossible to forget. That is how the unstoppable control the rhythm of power, not through noise, but through strategic silence. The moment you think you've arrived, you begin to rot. Every empire that ever collapsed, every king who lost his throne, every genius who faded into obscurity, all fell for the same fatal illusion, that the climb was finally over. But the powerful, the truly unstoppable, know that the climb never, ever ends. Because power is not a static possession, it's a pulse, a living force. It must be relentlessly fed, constantly refined, and continually reinvented, or it dies. Machiavelli warned rulers that fortune destroys those who stand still, complacent. He said that when the world changes, as it inevitably does, and a man stubbornly refuses to adapt, he becomes his own downfall, his own executioner. To survive, to thrive, you must stay fluid, perpetually unpredictable, even to yourself. Evolution is the final, ultimate weapon of power. It is how you outlast envy, betrayal, time, and even the suffocating weight of your own legend. The unstoppable never settle into a single, comfortable version of themselves. They outgrow it, again and again, shedding old skins until even their past fears cannot recognize them. The masses cling to identity like a protective armor. They declare, "This is who I am," as if that phrase will protect them from change, from vulnerability. But what they call identity is often just habit, a comfortable prison built from yesterday's choices, today's limitations. The powerful systematically destroy that prison regularly. They break their own patterns before the world can. They reinvent their appearance, their methods, their entire mindset, not because they are lost, but precisely because they refuse to be found, to be pinned down. To evolve is to remain untouchable. Once people think they understand you, they begin to predict you. And once they can predict you, they can and will control you. Change kills that control. This is why evolution often feels like an act of betrayal to those who stay behind, stagnant. When you grow, you stop fitting into the neat, comfortable illusions that others have built around you. They'll call you arrogant, distant, ungrateful, because your transformation threatens their own stability, their own fixed worldview. But the unstoppable owe no one the version of themselves that feels safe to others. They understand that progress demands isolation, invites criticism, and necessitates brutal reinvention, and they accept that with quiet, unwavering precision. Machiavelli would call this self-preservation through transformation, the art of shedding the skin before it hardens, before it restricts. It is not about chasing fleeting trends or pretending to be new. It's about adjusting your form, your strategy, your manifestation, while keeping your core, your fundamental purpose, intact. Like a serpent, cold and calm, always shedding what no longer serves its ascent. Evolution is not chaos. It is strategy disguised as rebirth. It allows you to remain many steps, many moves, ahead of those who desperately cling to yesterday's rules, yesterday's battles. While they try, futilely, to master what you used to be, you are already becoming something else, something new, something indefinable. This is the final law of the unstoppable. Never arrive. Keep moving. Keep learning. Keep mutating your edge. The moment they think they've understood you, change again. Because permanence is death, and relentless transformation is power. Let them chase your shadow while you rewrite yourself in silence. Let them argue about who you are while you build, with deliberate intent, who you will become next. Let them fear your evolution, because fear, in its deepest form, is merely respect in disguise. And one day, they will realize the profound truth. You were never one person. You were an entire evolution, a relentless force of change, disguised as a single name. That is what it truly means to be unstoppable, to conquer not once, but forever. If this philosophy spoke to you, if you felt that quiet burn of awakening while listening, then remember, this isn't fleeting motivation, it's permanent transformation. So stay sharp, stay cold, stay evolving.